I've spent my life chasing myths and legends, sifting through folklore for the faintest slivers of truth. So when I heard whispers of a deadly black tiger that once terrorized a remote village in northern India, I couldn't resist. The villagers called it Kala Bagh, the dark tiger. A creature of legend? Or something much worse? I arrived in Thanpur on a cold November morning. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. The village nestled at the edge of a dense forest, a place where time seemed to have stopped. The people were wary of me. I can't blame them. I was a stranger with a notebook and a recorder, but curiosity eventually broke their silence. I began with the elder, an emaciated man with a face like cracked leather. He sat cross-legged outside his hut, chewing on a piece of betel nut as he recounted the tale. It was 20 years ago. He rasped, his voice like the wind through dry leaves. The first to die was Suresh, the woodcutter. They found his body in the forest, what was left of it. His head was missing and his chest torn open, as if the tiger wanted something more than meat. He spat on the ground and continued. We thought it was a rogue. Tigers, you know, they don't attack like that unless provoked. But this one, it didn't just kill. It made us fear the dark. I pressed him for details, but he only shook his head. Others can tell you more. And so they did. A woman named Meena told me of the night her father disappeared. He was returning from the fields after sunset. I remember the sound, a scream, but it wasn't human. It was wet, like a gurgle mixed with a roar. The next morning, we found his body hanging from a tree. The marks on him, they were too precise too. Cruel. Her voice broke, and she turned away. An old hunter, Ravi, had his own story. He claimed to have seen the creature up close. It wasn't like other tigers, he said, lighting a bidi with trembling hands. Its fur was black, darker than the night. And its eyes, they glowed, not like a reflection, but like fire. It moved without sound, like a ghost. I shot at it once, but the bullet barely slowed it down. I still hear its growl in my dreams. The accounts grew stranger, more unsettling. Villagers spoke of the tiger as if it were more than a beast. A man told me his uncle had seen it dragging a corpse toward the forest, but instead of eating, it seemed to bury the body. Another claimed the tiger's prints vanished abruptly in soft earth, as if it had simply evaporated. The stories became tinged with the supernatural. Some said it was a Rakshasa, a demon bound to the form of a tiger. Others believed it was the reincarnation of a shaman who had cursed the village for cutting down sacred trees. A few whispered that the tiger had been summoned by someone who had wanted vengeance. I spent days collecting these accounts, piecing together a fragmented history. The killings had lasted nearly a year, leaving 13 dead before the tiger vanished as suddenly as it appeared. Some believed it had been killed by a storm that struck the forest. Others thought it had simply moved on, seeking new prey. One night, as I sat reviewing my notes by the faint light of a lantern, the elder came to me. His eyes gleamed in the flickering light. You've heard their stories, he said, but there's something they didn't tell you. He leaned closer, his breath smelling of betel and decay. The tiger didn't just kill, it hunted souls. I froze. What do you mean? The bodies, he said. They were not just torn apart. There was something missing in their eyes, something gone. It was as if the tiger devoured their spirit, not just their flesh. I laughed nervously, but his expression didn't waver. You think I'm an old fool, he said, but I saw it. After the killings, the forest changed. It became quieter. The birds stopped singing. The animals left. Even now you'll notice it. I had noticed. The forest felt unnatural, its silence oppressive. Before I left, the elder gave me a warning. The tiger is not gone. It sleeps. It sleeps for now. As I drove away from Thanpur, the stories kept playing in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to them than folklore, more to the black tiger than legend. A week later, I reviewed the recordings in my study. That's when I heard it. A faint growl. It was pretty low, but I still heard it in the background of one of the interviews. I don't remember hearing it in the village, but now I just think to myself, and I wonder if the elder was right. It wasn't the first time I'd heard rumors of oversized crocodiles. I'd filmed Nile crocodiles in Africa and the massive gharials of India, but none of those prepared me for the whispers that brought me to the Baluran National Park in Indonesia. It began as a tip from a marine biologist friend. "There's talk of a saltwater crocodile bigger than Lolong," he said, referencing the Guinness World Record holder at 20.24 feet. Locals call it Buaya Hantu, the ghost crocodile. At first, I dismissed it as folklore. Stories of monstrous creatures are as old as time. But when photos surfaced, a grainy image of a tail disappearing into the water and another of enormous claw marks in the muddy riverbanks, I was intrigued. The prints alone suggested something much larger than any crocodile on record. By the time I landed in East Java, I had assembled a small crew. Mark, my cameraman, Dr. Anita Rahman, a herpetologist familiar with the area, and Ramat, a local guide who claimed to have seen the crocodile twice. The locals were both helpful and hesitant. Many avoided speaking about the creature, as if invoking its name might summon it. But those who did were adamant. "It is not like other crocodiles," an old fisherman told me. "Its head is as wide as a canoe. Its eyes shine like fire at night. It has lived here for generations, and it has a taste for men." Another villager added, "My uncle saw it take a buffalo in one bite." One bite. The river turned red for days. The stories ranged from awe-inspiring to downright terrifying. And while many were exaggerated, they shared one consistent theme. This was no ordinary crocodile. We set up camp near the Baikal River, the heart of the sightings. The dense mangroves were alive with the hum of insects and the occasional call of birds, but the water had an eerie stillness. Every ripple made me wonder if we were being watched. Anita and Rahmat began by analyzing the environment. We found evidence of crocodiles, scat, claw marks, and a few nests, but none were extraordinary. Then Rahmat led us to a mud bank where something had slid into the river. "This is it," he said, pointing to the drag marks. "Look at the width. No ordinary crocodile could make this." The groove was massive, easily 5 feet across. Anita measured it, her brow furrowing. "If this is from a crocodile, it could be over 25 feet long," she muttered. "But that's impossible." I felt a mix of excitement and unease. Crocodiles that size were supposed to be extinct, or myths. Our first 2 days were uneventful. The cameras caught nothing but smaller crocodiles and the occasional wild boar drinking from the river. At night, we took turns on watch, listening for any movement in the water. It wasn't until the 3rd night that we got our first glimpse. The sound woke us, a loud, guttural splash, followed by the shrill cries of something dying. We rushed to the riverbank with flashlights and cameras. The beam caught the tail end of something enormous slipping beneath the surface, leaving a wake that rocked our boat. "It's here," Rahmat whispered, his voice trembling. We set up motion-activated cameras and baited a shallow cove with fish carcasses. The next morning, the bait was gone, and the cameras had been triggered. But what they captured was unsettling. The footage showed the crocodile emerging from the water, its head massive, its jaws snapping the carcasses with terrifying ease. Its length was hard to gauge, but its sheer size dwarfed anything I'd ever seen. What struck me most were its scars, pale ridges across its back, as if it had survived countless battles. "This isn't just a big crocodile," Anita said, replaying the footage. "This is a living relic." The following days were a mix of frustration and awe. The crocodile seemed to toy with us, appearing just long enough to elude capture. One evening, as we drifted on the river in a small boat, we felt a jolt beneath us. "It's under us," Mark hissed, his knuckles white on the camera. The water rippled, and for a brief moment, the crocodile surfaced. Its head alone was the size of a small car. It stared at us, its golden eyes gleaming, before sinking back into the depths. Mark captured it on film, but none of us spoke until we were back on land. The experience was humbling and terrifying. By the end of our expedition, we had hours of footage, measurements of its tracks, and a story that would captivate the world. But we also left with unanswered questions. Why had this crocodile grown so large? Was it a genetic anomaly? Or had it found some perfect niche in this remote ecosystem? As I write this, experts are analyzing the data. Some are skeptical, while others believe this could rewrite our understanding of crocodilian biology. For me, the experience was more than scientific. Seeing that creature, a living, breathing titan, was like staring into prehistory, a reminder that nature still holds secrets too vast for us to comprehend. And as much as I long to return, a part of me hopes the Buaya Hantu remains hidden, a guardian of the wild, far from the reach of man.